Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of 100 Yards Football Sports Talk Radio. I'm your host and producer, Logan Landers, and joining me here today from the Elite Sports Entertainment Network to talk about Deacon Jones, the defensive end from the Los Angeles Rams, is my guy, Jay McLovin. Jay, how you doing, my brother?
Fantastico.
You're doing great today.
And it's good to be here, Logan. Talking about Deacon Jones. Just a lot of information on this guy that blew my mind. His actual real name is David D. Jones. He obviously, he went to Mississippi Valley State, and he also played for the Rams. He also played for a lot of other teams than just the Rams. He was a defensive end, obviously. 14 seasons in the NFL. Rams was the longest tenure. Then he went on to the Chargers, and the last year, I believe, was
74.
I want to say it was with the Redskins. And that's kind of how that order went for that. He obviously came to the Hall of Fame in 1980. The guy was 6'5", 272, pretty good sized guy. Slender though, right? So he's quick and slender, 6'5", 272. That's a slender guy for that position. South Carolina State in 1958 is when he joined the college ranks in football, and then from there he went on to Mississippi Valley State in 1960. Now, Logan, go on and ask me, why was he not? What happened to him in 1959, Logan?
Why don't you tell me, Jay? What happened to Deacon in 1959?
Oh, I'm glad you asked. So he's at South Carolina State in 1958. Then he had to take a year off. And then he went to Mississippi Valley State in 1960. Well, why did he take the year off? Yes, I'm glad you asked that question. So South Carolina revoked his scholarship because he was involved in the protests in the civil rights movement era. And apparently that didn't sit well with South Carolina State. So they revoked his scholarship. He took a year off. And then one of the other coaches left South Carolina State, went to Mississippi Valley, and then recruited him over to Mississippi Valley in 1960. Now, here's the interesting thing, Logan. He wasn't allowed to sleep in the hotels or the motels when they were on the road. Ask me where he slept, Logan.
Where did he sleep at, man?
With all the other African Americans in that time period in the opposing gyms.
Oh, yeah.
On a cot. In the opposing gyms. That's where this man slept. I mean, it's incredible that he had to go through those kinds of time periods and yet still played and operated at the level in which he did. I mean, it's incredible to me. He went into the draft in 61, round 14, pick 186, Logan. I mean, this is the greatest guy in the history of the defense, or one of the greatest guys. And this guy was drafted, again, a very, very late round guy. Robert Starbuck was a late round guy. This is a late round guy. All these guys, it's crazy to me. But yeah, it was a very late pick, 186. But he was a 2-time defensive player, 8-time Pro Bowler, 5-time sack leader in 64, 65, and then 67 through 1969. The NFL, he made the NFL 1960s All-Decade team. His number 75 was retired by the Rams, which in all aspects it should have been. It actually should have been retired by not only the Rams, but it should have been retired by the Redskins and Chargers as a tribute to what he's done for the game of football. Obviously, anybody who knows Deacon Jones knows that he specialized in sacks to a point where he termed the team sack. I mean, that's where the term sack comes from. It's literally Deacon Jones. Just let that sit in for a minute. That's how much of an impact this guy had. Just like Roger Staubach, we coined the Hail
Mary, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So this is another influential guy in terms of the NFL. His nickname was the Secretary of Defense.
What a great nickname. That's one of the best ones, man.
Yeah, I mean, literally, it's right. It's right there with Captain America.
I'd say the two we've talked about today. Those are two of the best going.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing about it was, he did all of this, like I said, during a time period where, it just wasn't a good time period. Yeah. Honestly, for our country, but he didn't let it take him down. I mean, the guy still performed at a super high level. Like I said, he got the number. This is another thing I want to explain. How did he get the term Deacon? Because I just told you a minute ago his actual real name is David D. Jones. So why do they call him Deacon Jones? I'm glad you asked that question, Logan. And Vincent, I'm glad in your mind you're asking that same question as well. And I'm going to tell you the reason why. To many, he looked at the phone book. He said, "There's a lot of David Joneses in the phone book. That's too many. I'm going to call myself Deacon because football is a violent sport and Deacon is a religious connotation. And wouldn't that be a nice way to remember my name?"
And boy, did everyone remember it.
So, yeah, exactly. And then here's something else. Fun fact. He was a rhythm and blues singer and backed a band called Night Shift, which then went on to become a band called War. Mm-hmm. And he sang on stage, believe it or not, he sang on stage with Ray Charles. Deacon Jones. And last thing I'm going to point out is 1977. There was a song put out by Steely Dan that's called the Deacon Blues, and it was all about Deacon Jones.
And the
last thing I want to point out is that now Rosie Greer is the only player left from the Fearsome Foursome, and what Deacon Jones was a part of. What a time to be alive! Rest in peace to all those.
Yeah, man. Going back to when he was drafted, right? In round number 14, pick 186. Jay, he was discovered by accident. It wasn't like they were looking at Mississippi Valley State footage, not back then, which is a shame because there's been some really good talent that's came out of that college. But the Rams were actually looking at some running backs, and they said, who's this guy that's out running these running backs here? Well, that's the man you see on the screen. Like you said, I mean, him, the Fearsome Foursome on the Rams. I mean, you know, with Lundy, Greer, Olsen, Merlin Olsen, that is. My God, what a tandem that is. Good luck to all the opposing O linemen. They probably still have scars to this day having to deal with those four. And you mentioned this guy, he's got a mean side to him, you know? Because he said in an interview one time, I'll keep it clean here. He says, "I'm probably the toughest dude here. Ain't no question about that with me. I'm the toughest guy here. I'm clean. I mean, I ain't got no marks on me. I don't know no one else who can say that who came out of any sport. I ain't got no marks on me. So I've got to be the baddest dude I know of."
I love that.
I mean, my God. I mean, this guy, just how good he was. It still kind of baffles me, man, that LA traded this guy away in 72. I mean, it was a package deal, right? They traded a couple players away. They traded it for Jeff Staggs, who was the main piece that they got over from San Diego, who played a couple of years in the league. But I mean, he is one of the best players just in the league. And I mean, we all know how good Aaron Donald was with the Rams. And I mean, all the records he was, you know, getting up there and being compared to was this guy's. Was Deacon Jones.
Yeah.
Like you said, a guy, it's insane. Because this guy, he's an absolute dream for journalists, you know, like me. This quote here he gave in 99. He talked about, you know, what it was like sacking a quarterback, right? And he says, you take all the offensive linemen, you put them in a burlap sack, you take a baseball bat and you beat on the bag. You're sacking them, you're bagging them, and that's what you're doing with a quarterback. You put them in a burlap sack and you're beating them.
Love that. Wish we
God.
Get back out of football.
Oh, and also, we got to mention this too, Jay. You mentioned he's a revolutionary when it comes to sacks, but you got to mention the head slap.
Oh, God, yeah.
You got to mention the head slap.
Oh, yeah.
And he's the first one to use it. He said he used it to, quote, give myself an initial head start on the pass rush, or in other words, an extra step. Because anytime you go upside a man's head, they may have a tendency to blink or close their eyes, and that's all he needs. He said it wasn't his invention, but he was the one, I think, who patented it the most, who utilized it the best. Like you said, they say he accumulated 173.5 sacks over his career, which would have been third all-time on the all-time sack list and first all-time when he retired. But as we know, they didn't start counting sacks till a little bit later. But my God, over 173.5 is crazy. But Jay, if you want to know how good this guy was, right? In 1964, in 14 games, he had 22 sacks. That's like a sack and a half a game.
That's insane. That's just insane. Let me think about that. That's insane.
14 games, 22 sacks.
That's insane.
And it would have been a record. Al Baker got it, though, in 78. He had 23 sacks. But my God. Like I said, in 67, he had 21.5 sacks. In 68, he had 22. I mean, it is insane the peak this guy had. He had like a 7-year run where just no one could stop him. From, I would say, like 64 through 70. Obviously, he's getting double-digit sacks up in the high 15s, 20s. There wasn't anyone who could stop him. There was really not anyone who could stop him. And just he went on and it just, like you said, had a tremendous career in the league. And man, just the amount of awards he's gotten, the Hall of Fames he's went into, and everything like that, just could speak by itself. But yeah, man, like you said, passed away a little over 10 years ago now in 2013. He was 74. But man, what an impact that he left on the game. Everyone said that he was a monster on the field. You didn't want to mess with him then. But once you got him off the field, once you got him to crack a little bit, man, that he was just a tall giant. So I think that Deacon Jones, oh my God, don't mess with him on the field. That's all we got to say, I think. The headache for many opposing linemen and quarterbacks, for that matter, someone who he lost sleep over. But the be-all, end-all of what a pass rusher should be.
Yeah.
And one of the greatest, not just Rams of all time, but one of the greatest, not just defensive players of all time, one of the greatest football players of all time. And he came out of South Carolina State by way of Mississippi Valley State, round 14, and went on to become an example of what a lot of people looked up to and continue to this day for how he's able to get to the quarterback. Well, it's been an absolute honor, man, talking about Deacon Jones today, the impact he's had on the game. And it's always a good time talking to my friend Jay McLovin about this. And guys, if you enjoyed this episode, give us a like, follow, share, and subscribe on Facebook and YouTube, main two platforms over there. But you can also go and download the podcast every single week as well on Spotify and Apple Podcast. Well, until next time, go out there and watch some Deacon Jones highlights. Go, if you have any stories about the man, put them in their comments, and we'll be sure to reply to you over there. But until next time, we'll see you again on another live